Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh, and hi everyone. My name is Muhammad Arif Izzat bin Muhammad Zaki. My metric number is 2020-49-1906. Today, I'm gonna to explain and present about Monocotyledon and Dicotyledon. But before that, what is monocot? Monocot is a short form for Monocotyledon. Monocotyledon is a flowering plant with an embryo that bears a single cotyledon. Monocotyledons constitute the smaller of the two great divisions of flowering plants. Monocotyledon have elongated stalkless leaves with parallel veins, for example, grasses, lilies, and palms. What about dicot? What is dicot? Dicot also is a short form for dicotyledon. Dicotyledon is a flowering plant with an embryo that bears two cotyledons. Dicotyledons constitute the larger of the two great divisions of flowering plants, and typically have broad stalks, leaves with net-like veins. For example, daisies, hawthorn, and oaks. For monocotyledon, there are 5 features that can be easily observed. First is flower, second is leaf venation, third is roots, fourth is stems, and fifth is pollen grains. But before that, let me explain to you guys about flowers. Flowers usually arrange their parts in circle with the reproductive parts in the middle surrounded by petals and sepals. But in monocots, these flower parts are trimerous. In other words, the flower parts of a monocot are arranged, structured, or numbered in a multiples of 3, usually with one stigma, 3 stamens, 3 petals, and a calyx formed by the sepals in number less than or equal to the number of petals. Next is leaf venation. Venation refers to the patterns of veins in a leaf blade. These veins are responsible for the transport of water and carbohydrates throughout the plant. In monocots, these veins are arranged in a parallel-like pattern. Compared to other patterns of venation, in parallel venation, the parallel veins are smaller in size, with even smaller veins connecting them. Third is roots. While monocot starts off with a taproot, these taproots tend to die soon after germination and are replaced by adventitious roots. Adventitious roots look fibrous and are spread widely throughout the soil in many different directions. They tend to occupy the upper layer of soil and can be modified for different purposes like additional anchorage or aerial support. Because of adventitious roots typically arise from an organ that is not the root of a plant, such as the stem or sometimes a leaf, we are able to grow multiply plants from stem or leaf cuttings of a existing plant. Next is stems. It is important to note that the stems of monocot have lost the ability to increase their diameter by producing wood and bark through secondary growth. Instead, monocot stems die down each year, allowing new stems to grow. The only growing point of a monocot stem is at the top of the stem, this allowing the growth of any side stems or branches. Typically, then, monocotyledons are small and herbaceous, Monocot stems have the following characteristic. First, a single layer epidermis with a thick cuticle. Second, lack of epidermal hairs. Third, lack of concentric arrangement. Fourth, hypodermis is sclerenchymatous. Fifth, presence of bundle sheets. Sixth, oval vascular bundles of different size, and most notable, scattered vascular bundles that do not have any pattern. And the last one is pollen grains. Monocots have a pollen structure that is retained from the first angiosperm. The pollen grain of a monocot is monosulcate, meaning that the pollen has a single furrow or pore through the outer layer. What about dicot or dicotyledon? There are also 5 features that can be easily observed. It is same like monocotyledon. First is flower, second is leaf venation, third is roots, fourth is stems, and the last one is pollen grains. In dicots, these flower parts are pentamerous. In other words, the flower parts of a dicot are arranged, structured, or numbered in multiples of 5 or sometimes 4. This is not reliable. However, it's not the easiest characteristic to look for in flowers that have either reduced or numerous parts. Next is leaf venation. In dicots, the veins are arranged in a net-like or reticulated pattern. The veins in such leaves appear to look like a finely branched network throughout the leaf blade, with finer veins reticulating between the major veins. However, as with the number of flower parts, leaf venation is also unreliable characteristic upon which to base your classification assessment. Some flowers may display reticulated venation but are actually monocots, such as the Eroids and Dioscoriales families. Third is roots. In plants, the radical or the embryonic roots is the first part to emerge from the seed. It shoots down into the ground and begins to taking up nutrients and water from the soil. The radicle of a dicot plant develops into the root of the plant. More specifically, the root of a dicot is known as a tap root. The tap root system have a long and deep primary root with smaller secondary root growth laterally branching off of the primary root. Fourth is stems. Dicot exhibit secondary growth, which is the ability to increase their diameter via the production of food and bark. This is the result of two lateral meristems, the cork cambium and the vascular cambium. This lateral meristem continue to produce new cells throughout the life of the woody dicot plant, ultimately increasing the girth of the plant. The rigidity of wood and bark provide mechanical supports against gravity and desiccation to dicots and allowing them to grow large, tall, and solid. Dicot stems also have the following characteristic. Firstly, multicellular. First is multicellular epidermal hairs all over the epidermis. Second is collenchymatous hypodermis. Third is pith. Fourth is differentiated ground tissues. And a limited number of vascular bundles in a concentric arrangement. The vascular bundles are typically limited to numbers of 4 or 8 and arranged near the perimeter of the stem in or in one or two rings. And the last one is pollen grains. Pollen grains are like the male sex cells of plant. They are the male gametophytes that produce the plant's sperm cells. The pollen grains of dicot plant have physical characteristics that distinguish them from the pollen grains of dicot plant. If we look closely, dicot pollen grains are tricolpate, meaning that they have three ridges that go through the outer layer. This structure is derived from the first angiosperms, which had monocotyledon pollen grains having one ridge. The monocotyledon form, however, was not retained over the course of divergent evolution. I think that's all from me. Thank you for having your time listening.